Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to give people a few seconds to make sure that the audio is finished connecting. Welcome back to our speaker series. Today, we have a doubleheader, a duo. We have one Lieutenant Colonel Robert Barrow and Maggie Dannreuther. Now, some of you may have met Lieutenant Colonel Frank Barrow at our business symposium. But for those who don't know him, he's a graduate of the Army Command and General Staff College and the Armed Forces Staff College Joint and Combined Staff Officer School. This man has done so many things. Like the bio, it's very long. But over the course of his career, he's had many tours of duty, many command roles and operational assignments in various commands. He retired around the 1st of January 2002, and then immediately, he didn't want any break whatsoever, guys. He immediately assumed duties as the senior Army instructor for the junior ROTC program in LaForte High School in Mobile, Alabama. After teaching in the classroom for 11 years, he transitioned into his current role as the Director of Army Instruction, responsible for supervising all junior ROTC programs in Mobile County public schools. Maggie here is an excellent science communicator and does program evaluation. Anyone who does grants understands two important things: is getting that information out in a digestible manner and making sure that program is doing what they gave you money to do. So thank you, Maggie. Those are two very important jobs. She collaborates with researchers and program administrators to develop a wide range of content, from technical reports to those more public-friendly summaries about science activities. And we're here today to talk about, and I won't spoil it, but it's on the slide, the Junior ROTC STEM Leadership Academy. It's a residential academy that's used to expose and engage a unique population of Mobile High School students in STEM content, skills, and fields of study. Now, I won't tell you anything else because that's what the speakers are here for. And without further ado, take it away.
Well, good afternoon. Youngsters is what I just asked Dr. Swickle about your ages. So if you're in the 20 to 30 year group, to me, you're quite a youngster, actually. I'm very excited to be a part of this today, and thank you to Dr. Swickle for the invitation. Maggie, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm very happy to be here today and part of the team that is working to increase the awareness and interest in STEM careers outside of the formal classroom.
Well, I've been asked to take the first half of this, so I'll get started. As the first slide indicated, it's a JROTC STEM Leadership Academy. It's something we started. This will be our 9th iteration this coming summer, which I'm very proud of the work that we've done. And let me just give you a little bit of background, and I may have shared this last week during the symposium too, but I was so privileged when I met and had this idea, this concept, to meet Dr. Julie Swickla when she was still here at the University of South Alabama, to try and see how we can take JROTC, which is a great curriculum and a great product for young people in high school. It's a great fit for so many young students, to another level, though, to expose them to STEM, as well as workforce development and career opportunities that are STEM related. And she immediately understood the direction that I was trying to go, because I had zero assets and zero experience in making this thing work. And we collaborated together. What was supposed to be a 15 to 20 minute office call turned into about a 2-hour discussion. And I left there truly excited and really had the thought that this can in fact work. And it did lead to where we are now. We'll go into some of the history of that in just a moment, but it is as he indicated, a week-long resident course with an emphasis on a STEM project in various different levels that has now grown into a great opportunity for 10 other school districts across America. And we'll talk about how we got there in just a moment. So if you'll advance to the next slide. Here are the goals, and this youngster that I'm looking at, the young girl in the front of the picture, I just saw her this morning. She's competing in a Raider team competition. She's a tough little rascal, to be honest, and she graduates this year. But I take that back. She'll be the commanding officer for the unit next year. She's a junior. But the goal of this is to significantly increase for our students an understanding of the different STEM pathways that are there. Some students are intimidated when they hear that word STEM, that science and technology. Well, that's beyond my capacity to do, or they think only of AP courses and so forth. When in reality, STEM is around us every single day. And what our goal with this was, of course, is and continues to be, is to help students realize that there are wonderful career opportunities and that they have the potential to work in those career fields with a STEM background, and that they are capable of those type of projects. And the projects that are embedded with the course of study that we have over the week, they demonstrate that. All too often, we tend to neglect what I call our regular course students. Not that we don't have our fair share of advanced and honors level students, but the majority of kids in high school are regular students. And sometimes they're led to believe that, well, you're just going to get into the workforce with minimum skill sets. And that's not true. They actually have the potential to be much more than that if we spend the time to go over the basic principles involved with each of those science or technology or engineering or mathematic formulas and so forth. And we give them not only the theoretical piece of it, but also a ground perspective of how those things work and how they're used in the industrial workforce. Next slide. This is kind of the outline of what we're going to discuss today. We'll follow each of those. You'll see those kids. That's aboard the USS Alabama, which is a World War II battleship that we were fortunate to keep here in Mobile back in the 60s. And it is a museum to expose students to that history, which is so important to our country. But part of it relates clearly to maritime as well. And when we have our maritime theme, we'll bring them aboard there to see how that ship worked and how that compares to modern ships and so forth. Next slide. Here's the leadership team that I have the privilege of being a part of and work with. Julie Swickla, as you know, has moved to the University of Southern Mississippi, and she introduced me to a wonderful lady by the name of Dr. Susan Hinton, who is an amazing grant writer, and she's tenacious when it comes to finding opportunities to marry up with this kind of work. And so as Julie left, she never really left us. She stayed with the team, but moved to another location. But in the back pocket was Dr. Susan Hinton, a brilliant woman who has really helped get us to where we're at today. As you see the rest of the individuals there, this is a unique collaboration that we have, not only former and current JROTC instructors working with us, but we have members of our faculty here at the Mobile County School District, as well as faculty members from other institutions at the post-secondary level. The research team came about as a result of two grants that we received. One, the National Science Foundation grant, which later we were able to continue working under a Department of Defense STEM grant, which was a fascinating opportunity. And we brought on some additional members to include Maggie, and they're doing significant work for us. All of this team, though, comes from multiple backgrounds, and it's a wonderful collaborative effort. I think that collectively we get along in a fascinating way. And that famous word collaboration, we do a lot of that, giving our different perspectives and different backgrounds. Next slide. And by the way, if you have any questions during the middle of this, you can certainly put it in the chat box, or you can ask it out loud, because I do like interaction, and that's true for both Maggie and myself. And let's talk about the model for a little bit. If you look at this model, back in 2000, it says 14, it's actually 2013 that Julie and I met. And I had no money. All I had was a vision and an idea, and no partners, no network at all. But slowly over the course of those 2 years, with tremendous assistance from Dr. Swickla and Dr. Pruitt, we began to find a way to make this work. And as you start to look at these things, and you're looking at grants and so forth, as you continue your graduate level work, I will tell you that networking and finding those individuals that are like-minded, and I don't mean lockstep, that we don't disagree, but like-minded in the goal of educating or whatever it might be that you're looking for. That's so important. The networking piece is critical. And so in 2015, though, we were able to execute our first academy. and it's a multi pronged group of folks that work together. The first was to find a place to do this, and we secured facilities at Spring Hill College, which is a Jesuit Catholic private institution here in Mobile. And because of the Jesuits, if you're familiar with them, that was a sort of a teaching group of individuals, and they opened their doors to us, which was a huge step for us. We had to find a place to be able to conduct our training. The other aspect of this was to find all of the business and industry partners that also understood how we might be a pipeline to their facilities, because like all of us today, they're looking for quality, skilled employees. And that was another, we worked through the Chamber of Commerce and other like-minded institutions to do that, the city, the county, and so forth. And so we executed our first one. The hard part was funding, and money is always important. Money, I'll say it again, is extremely important. And we were so blessed in 2015 that the Army funded about a third of this. Business and industry contributed another third, and then the rest of it came from federal programs. I was blessed that the federal programs director here in our district overheard me talking about this, and Miss Belinda Roberts, and she called me and shared with me a way that they could fund the other third. And that allowed us then to execute this first one. It was so important, and it was extremely successful. The other part that's key to this is the Army requires us to have a summer program. And we were able to do all of the key critical components of that summer, more Army-centric type things during that academy. So we merged it and really enhanced that model and made it significantly better from what had been done in the past with the Army. You see that from 2016 to 17, we continued to refine that model. And then we narrowed it down. The first year, we were asking any industry, any business that would work with us and collaborate with us to open their doors. We realized from 16 through 17 that in our district, in our region, there are three critical areas where STEM is so important, and it relates directly to career opportunities that exist here. We have a large port. There's a significant number of maritime career opportunities. For those of you that are unaware, we opened up a large wide-bodied aviation manufacturing facility in Mobile, Alabama at what used to be Brooklyn Air Force Base through Airbus. And that brought in hundreds and hundreds of jobs that relate to the aviation field. And the last one is one that Mobile's always been strong with, and that's advanced manufacturing. We have steel plants all along the Alabama River corridor. Chemical plants exist there. Of course, power generation and all of those things are related directly to advanced manufacturing. So now we rotate through those three themes over the course of our study. Again, going back to money. So we survived on that three-legged stool for those first 3 years, but in 2018, we applied for and received a $1 million grant for a 3-year term to support and continue doing the work that we're doing. And that was a huge success story for us. And considering that the average last week during the symposium, I was so interested in the other grant writers. They talked about you have to be prepared for failure because a lot of times you're going to be told no. Well, we were successful in our first opportunity with a significant grant. And out of the monies awarded by the National Science Foundation to secondary institutions, there was only 2 districts that got money, and we were one of them right here in Mobile. So I was very proud of that. And I tell everybody, I am not the smart guy in the room on this. When you prepare grants, you need to have someone who's skilled in that particular endeavor, because of the work that Maggie's going to talk about later. That research component is so critical. I'm the execution guy. I want to see what happens with our students right now and make sure things are available to happen immediately. Whereas these institutions, though, that have money, they're looking for the long-term data piece, and that's also very important. And you have to have those team members that are willing, that know how to do that, and so forth. And again, I've been blessed to have that. Let's see, last thing here is then at the end of the grant, again, Frank Barrow is sitting here worried about, well, okay, where are we going to get money again? And the team, and it's actually a team, we had an advisory council for the National Science Foundation grant, which we were required to have, and Dr. Swickler was in charge of that. But there was a member on her team that shared with us, have you looked at the DoD scale up or the DoD grants that are available under STEM? And to be honest, we had not. But we applied that summer on a relatively short notice, again, using some of the brilliant people that I was fortunate to have on our team and are still with us. And lo and behold, we received a $6 million grant to scale out this model across the nation. And we're in the process of doing that now. And it's so exciting to see that little small Alabama, Mobile, Alabama, is going to be able to have an impact on small communities like San Diego and Atlanta and some other communities across Dallas. I think Denver is in the mix. And so really, really neat that this small idea that Julie and I and Susan discussed has come to this point where over the next few years, we're going to have this model expanded at 10 different locations. And so that's exciting for us. And the first replication actually took place last year, and we will continue that this summer at 3 different locations outside of Mobile. For me, the big interest was that continues to fund Mobile at least through 2025. And my students will continue to be able to benefit from this exciting opportunity. Next slide. Those are the sites that were selected, and this was a challenging process. Each of them had to apply to participate in this grant, and significant dollars go to them so that they can really using these funds will not need any additional monies to execute this grant. It goes through our district, so that part you may have noted that my hair is a little gray. Managing this money and how that gets allocated and the contracts and all the challenges of that with finance, our finance team, is a challenging thing to do. But these individual school districts will receive monies from our district over either in quarterly installments or in 3 times per year to fund what they need to do to execute the grant. So this is neat to see, and we're excited about that. And the next slide, I think, shows you the potential. These are programs across the country. So you see how, if this is a successful model and the Army likes doing it because we're required to have them, that there's potential then for many, many districts across the nation to use this particular model as their way of having that mandatory summer program. So that's also exciting for us. And I think USM will continue to have a big part of that if we're fortunate, because they understand the vision of what we're trying to do. Next slide. And again, if you have any questions, just holler out. This is good good dialogue if you have anything that you want to ask. The academy model, just to go into it a little bit deeper, as I mentioned, the summer program that we are required to execute is called the JROTC Cadet Leadership Challenge. Every Army program is expected to send students to a program like this. Typically within a state, all of the programs in the state will collaborate together and conduct what is typically a Army-centric, you think of like competence courses, leadership opportunities, where they get to go and visit Army materials or learn how to do land navigation, conduct drown-proof training, to go rappelling, which is probably one of the highlights of it. All those kinds of things are what are typically done, sports and so forth, within that JCLC requirement. What we've added is the STEM curriculum, which is, I will admit, is a very challenging curriculum for our students. But because of the small nature, the small group nature of the way the instruction is provided, our students get a lot out of it. Even those students who typically say, well, I'm not really good at math, come out of it and say, well, I'm not really as bad at it as I thought. And that's what's fun to watch. And then lastly, which to me is very, very important, is we take them inside these industries and these universities to see if you want to go directly to the workforce, you can, and here's a pathway to do that. If you do want to go to continue at the post-secondary level, here's a pathway to do that. The things that it does is as you all know, and y'all are young enough to say, the cell phone today is a brilliant, wonderful instrument. However, high school kids spend most of their time on their cell phones and doing social media, with Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and those other platforms, because it's more of an entertainment value. And they remain, at least this is my experience with our students in Mobile County, is they are sometimes completely unaware of what career opportunities are right in our own backyard. And I will say that in Mobile, we are very, very blessed, as are many communities in Mississippi. There's some tremendous work going on, like in the Golden Triangle. I know there's lots of manufacturing and so forth that are up there that have well-paying jobs that our students should be interested in. By using this platform, we get those kids involved with it, and they get to see what's there. And that's very important to me, because we've got to make sure our young people have an opportunity. And a lot of our constituents, and those are the students, I call them my constituents, that's who I work for, they don't know about it, and I'm trying to improve their circumstance. A lot of them come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and just if they don't know about it, they can't improve their lot. And I've always invited Maggie, we're going to try and get you off that rappel tower like you see right there on this summer. Okay, next slide. Our curriculum is very interactive, very hands-on. You can see that we use a series of robotics. One of them that you see is a VEX robotics platform. We also use a Lego platform, which helps us with our maritime aspect of it. But they're pretty challenging, but it gives, again, our kids a chance to connect the theory to some real world application. Next slide. These again reiterate the three areas. My team liked the idea, as we exported this to the other districts across America, to call it STEM on the ground, which for me is the advanced manufacturing side of the house, STEM in the air, obviously aviation careers and so forth, and STEM on the water. But those are sort of the focus areas that the curriculum relate to. This particular photo is from, we have a magnificent museum. If you ever come to Mobile, you should visit the Gulf Quest Maritime Museum. It's located on the Mobile River in the port, and it's a great facility and again, it gives some hands-on application of what they're learning. And we try to mix all of that up to keep it interesting, because, you know, high school kids, their attention span is, you've got to mix it up to keep them laser focused. Next slide. Professional development is very important. As I mentioned, we collaborate with our science and math teacher colleagues in the high schools. We hire them, and so they've got to get on board with our Army way of doing business, but also to understand what it is we expect them to teach in a very condensed week. And the professional development piece of that is very critical, but it's very rewarding. You will note that the gentleman in the black shirt on the right, he is a JROTC instructor. So we marry up our JROTC instructors with those STEM and science teachers and that collaborative method. And we actually also hire the young lady with the braids. She is a student at Spring Hill College. So we have a current college student, we have a science or math teacher, and then we have a JROTC instructor, who all help oversee the curriculum as it's presented. And that's a beautiful thing. We often talk about collaboration, but I can assure you this is real world collaboration on a level that is, I am very proud of the work, the way this has been done. Next slide. Strategic actions for scaling is our next topic. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Colonel Barrow. And so now you've just heard a little bit about the develop and test phase of this project, but now with the DoD funding for scaling, you'll hear about the go big phase of the project. So the go big phase really is all about helping to develop capacity and support so that the replication sites can be successful, and also that they can develop their own STEM ecosystems in their localities. The evaluation component of the project is basically to see how the implementation is going at all these places, and also During the NSF portion of the study of the funding phase of this program, the cadets were tested in the STEM content areas, and they had gains in all of them during that time. We want to see whether or not the same types of gains are being seen in the cadets in these new places as well. And then finally, one of the last things we're looking at is what's the progress that's being made for these new sites to actually keep this innovation going. So what does scaling a program look like in practice? Well, the very first thing, and Colonel Barrow had already talked about this a little bit, is you've got to get the sites. And that is a really important activity right at the beginning. And in order to get good sites, you have to get the word out to your target audience, which in this case were other JROTC directors of Army instruction. And then next, you have to get insight into those that express an interest in wanting to be a potential replication site. And so we had an application process, as Colonel Barrow talked about, as well as information meetings, 1 hour with each group that said that they were interested. What that did is it allowed the team to assess the alignment with goals, how well that alignment was, and also kind of a sense of the readiness of each site to be able to move forward with this program. The next thing after selecting those with the best alignment and also with the most readiness was getting commitments, signed commitments from these folks and their school districts. So that, because we were working out on a 4-year schedule. And so we had, for those sites that may be not going to start until the 2025, we need to have these folks signed up and committed for this. So this act of getting the best replication sites was a strategic action, and it was a key one in the process of starting scaling. Another strategic action was to bring everyone together. And what this did was to help foster community among all the replication sites, but it also helped to increase the learning among one another, as well as be able to ask questions. One group may have questions that would be applicable to another, but this in-person meeting really helped make things more real. The two activities that are listed down at the bottom, the Observe Academy in Action and Interact with Mobile Partners, these were particularly important. This event, this planning conference, was held in the same location and during the same time that the Mobile Academy was actually going on. So the people who came from all these replication sites got a chance to see how it looked when an academy was in the process of occurring. And that really helps to make things real when you can see something in action. The other activity, which is interacting with the Mobile partners, was also a really key and successful activity event as part of this conference. They had a dinner where they invited all the Mobile partners from the industry, as well as the universities that support the program, and as well as having the cadets go and visit their sites. They had a panel, and they were able to talk about why they wanted to participate, what was appealing to them, what their experiences were like. Being able to communicate directly with these partners helped these new replication sites get a sense of what's important to them and gave them an idea of how to approach their own community, industries and academic institutions in a way that would be appealing to them. So the next strategic action that was taken as part of this scaling effort was to go now to the implementation sites. And this was another very important aspect, and this is actually going on right now. Going to each of these implementation sites, you get to meet and work with the teams on their turf. That is very important. You get to see what they're dealing with, what their facilities are like, what their whole team looks like. And you can tailor the kind of support that they need specific to their location. And so the overall goal here, again, is to help all of these new places cultivate their own STEM ecosystems in their own locations. That means bringing together local high school science and math teachers and bringing them together with the JROTC STEM cadre as well, and then taking the local students and bringing them as part of it, and then bringing in the third component, which are the local industries as well as the area academic institutions. So very quickly, the three strategic actions that have been taken, key ones have been to get the sites with the best fit and readiness, convene everybody as a group for that, beginning that good communication, and then to further that communication and support by going to each one of those sites. Now, all of these actions really are in line with the research that's taking place about the scaling process. And it's really, this research has been advancing over the past decade or two. And this particular matrix that you see here was developed by Beatty and Colburn. And what they have done is they have identified the things that affect the scaling process. So for instance, in the dimensions of scale, there are 5 of them. There's depth, sustainability, spread, and shift, and evolution. The depth talks about, is referring to the depth of the change that is taking place at a location that is implementing the innovation. Of course, sustainability and spread, sustainability over time, spread is how many people are using it. The shift has more to do with in ownership. There are those who developed the innovation, and then there are those who are going to adopt it. And then, so there needs to be a shift in ownership. And then over the course of all of this, the innovation can evolve as there's new people that are using it in new places. So that is, these are some of the dimensions of scale that are involved with scaling up a program. We'll just look at a couple of these. Like, for instance, the sources of leverage here have to do with the things that can enhance the scaling of an innovation. For example, with regard to the depth, if you look at the evaluation and research component there, what that can do is it can help you understand what's effective, what's not effective, and what's driving the fact that the particular elements of an innovation is effective or not effective. And those are things that can really help throughout the scaling process. Another thing, taking a look at the spread component and reducing resources and expertise. So the people who develop a program or an innovation, they definitely want to have significant change take place. Of course they do. That's behind what their motivation for this. But you have to be also cognizant that there are costs involved in that, and how much of the power of the program would be retained if maybe there were fewer costs involved and maybe less expertise included. So these are just things that have to be kept in the perspective of the developers' minds so that they are willing to kind of rethink the model a little bit so that there can be greater use of it, because greater use is progress as well. And then these traps to avoid. And these really all have to do with about finding balance. Like, for instance, the mutation, trap of mutation. This is about the developers and implementers finding balance in modifications. So you need these new sites to adopt and adapt this innovation. But at the same time, you have to make sure that the key components for success are not lost in that process. And that kind of takes you over to a little bit like the trap of optimality. Again, you've got your program objectives and what you're trying to do, but then again, you don't want that to come at the cost of somebody not trying to implement a program. And again, it's all about balance. And the trap of origination, again, this has to do with those folks who develop the program being willing to let others have some control over it as well, so that that sustainability of adoption can take place. So we'd really like to hear from you all at this point, taking a little break from listening to Colonel Barrow and myself speak. What we would like to do is ask each of you, you can unmute yourself if you'd like, questions about what you think some of the challenges might be that this effort would face, or maybe some of the aspects of the program that we described. How do you see it falling out within the research that is behind the scaling process? Or maybe you want to talk about what you think would be some of the major aspects that can contribute to either the success or the not success of a scaling effort. So if anyone would like to speak up, and we'll take a few minutes here. And while we're doing this, I'm just going to let a few pictures, a slideshow go on in the background, so you can have a chance to take a look at some of the activities that are taking place in the Mobile area that have been putting on this effort now for a number of years. And we had, again, the first replication of it actually took place in Mobile with another school district who came down to use the facilities. So does anybody have any questions about how the implementation is going, some of the challenges that we're facing? Colonel Barrow really has a lot of experience in dealing with the challenges, so I'm pretty sure that anything that you could think up, he could probably say, yes, you're right, we had that challenge, and here's what we had to do to move to the next step. So give a moment for anyone who would like to speak up.
While they're thinking of a question, one thing I'd like to, for those that are unaware, ROTC is not a recruiting agency for the military. Now, a lot of our students might choose to go into the service later on, and God knows we need them. Obviously, the services protect this country, but we are in this state under career and technical education, and so that's why, for me, workforce development was so critical, because we might have about 20 to 25% of our students that consider a military career, but the vast majority do not. And so what will they do? Where will they go? And we are very, very good at developing in them those employability skills that people look for. Things like decision-making, getting to work on time, understanding basic finances, knowing how to work as a team, knowing how to lead, and also knowing how to follow. And those are different skill sets. And so that's one of the strengths that we bring to the career and tech world. And by adding this whole STEM component and introducing them to workforce development opportunities, we're real proud of what we've achieved here in our state. And anyway, that's wanted to clarify that in case you were wondering about that.
One of the things that to me stood out during the week of the Mobile Academy that I got a chance to go from start to finish last year was the transformation that occurred with these cadets. They are coming from all different areas of a school district. They don't necessarily know one another, and they have to learn how to work together as teams in two different ways. One is putting together to address the STEM challenge and put together either a robot or other type of challenge that's been given to them that's related to a particular industry. And then the other one is when they're going and having all of the activities that are related that are more Army centric, they're having to work together as a team, whether it be in the sports or whether it be in learning how to work together not to get lost out in, land navigation, whatever it is. They're learning the same similar skills that will help them in different environments. And then by the end of that week, you have friendships that are formed. You have cadets who were shy and afraid to speak up that are now willing to talk, and they're leading groups in many different ways. They're helping one another. They are just so happy that they had this experience, which was challenging. And it's hard at times, and the hours are long, and there may be a few times when they're wondering whether or not they're going to get through that day. But by the end of the week, they have really had their eyes opened by going to these local businesses that they're not even really aware of that are there. They pass them up on the highway all the time. They don't know what's in those buildings. And they're getting to challenge themselves in ways physically that they may not have ever had an opportunity to do before.
Yeah, we do mix up the teams. We don't keep the school integrity. We split that out and mix them up. Obviously, we have a good balance of male and female opportunities. And so that's really important. So it does take them a moment for that team building to develop, but it goes very quickly. And then, of course, now the bad part is at the end of the week, they say, Colonel Barrow, we don't want to go home. We want to stay with you for another week. And by that time, I'm especially at my age, I am ready to, because I stay there on campus with them and participate in all their activities. I'm usually smoked by then. So I'm not the spry guy I used to be, but you can see through the photos of the shirts how we organize those. We have platoons. There's 6 of them, and that helps us identify quickly who you belong to. That part's a little regimented so that we can keep track of it, especially going to all these industries. And the cadre are typically in a uniform, and that's all cadre here. This particular photo, those are all of that's math, science teachers, JROTC cadre, and Spring Hill students. So it's a good mix, a good group of individuals. So.
All right, well, we'll just wrap things up real quickly with just a quick look at the evaluation component that's taking place with this project. And really, it's happening at 2 levels. It's at the individual site level, as well as the whole effort, as a scaling effort as a whole. So this is what the evaluation looks like in practice. We gather data across all the groups that are involved, and we use a variety of methods to get that data. And again, we're taking a look at what is happening at each site that is implementing the Academy model, as well as the entire scaling effort as a whole. And so basically what we're looking at for the cadets, the students, is their learning, their improvement, and their use of what they're learning and plan to use. For the adult side, what we're really looking at is their readiness, the execution of the model, and also what's the likelihood that they're going to continue to use it. One of the things that has happened during this time is that the whole evaluation has been evolving over the course of this project. For example, there's been a change in sponsorship. So from the NSF to the DoD, and that they have slightly different priorities. There's been a shift from a 1 location study with the NSF in Mobile now to a multi-site study. There have been increases in the number of evaluators that are on the ground collecting and analyzing data. And then there's been learning that we had from the very first replication in 22. So all of these things are contributing to some of the evolution of the evaluation itself. For example, that means that the groups that we're looking at have increased. We're not just looking at cadets anymore. We're looking at the whole team that's putting together an academy at these new sites. The items that we include in our instruments are now becoming more streamlined, more focused and geared to meet the tracking needs of the sponsor. And then the protocols that we use for the evaluators to use at all these different sites, different evaluators at different sites, to make sure they're looking at the same things and rating them the same ways, so that we get data that's comparable across all these different places. And then just the simple process of storing all of this information and streamlining that and making it be in a central location where we can all get it. So these are all some things that are involved with how the evaluation is changing. So this is a lot of data that we're collecting, and we tailor the communication of the results basically to two audiences. The first audience is the leadership team. And what we do is annually we hold a fall research retreat. It's a day-long retreat where we bring all of the leadership team members together, and we share the results from both the level of at each site, so we can see how individual sites are doing, bring out all that pre-post test data, the results of all the surveys and things like that. Then we start moving more away from individual sites to looking more at, okay, for the entire scaling effort, how are things going? We end the day with leaving recommendations that are actually actionable for the leadership team. For example, because again, you're looking at a lot of data, even across just one day of sharing it. So we make sure to let them know what is working. That's very important, because there's a lot of effort that goes into making things work, and you want to know what the successes are. Then the next two categories of watch and discuss and the address before next Academy Camp, those are things that have bubbled up from either in the surveys, from the interviews, and just informal discussions. Some of them are just things they need to keep their eye on. Others of them are significant enough that, look, you really need to make sure this gets addressed before the next camp happens. And then the next audience that we communicate these results to is more wide-ranging. So also in the fall, we produce a marketing style report that is for each Academy camp. And it kind of functions like an annual report. We use each site's data and photographs so that it's very customized for each location. And we give each one of these sites their respective report, and we encourage them to use this as a communication tool. For instance, go back to those industries that have let these cadets come and take a look. Let them see how the impact that visit has had on them. Let the school districts see what's going on with these students that are part of their responsibility. Use this when you're going to potentially new partners in industries and academic institutions. It just gives a very quick, synopsized, pleasant to look at, and short information that can pique their interest. And it's a way to communicate this big program in just a little bit of a few pages in a way that's appealing to them. So with that,
I was just asked in the chat box to discuss how the collaboration is working with our science teachers and our community, and also our JROTC instructors. I'll be honest with you, there are many of us in the JROTC community who are very apprehensive about delving into this. Although we have specific military occupational specialties, which are more STEM focused, a lot of them are not, where it's more in the application of things. And obviously, the Army, we're big into blowing up things and things like that. So some of my cadre were very nervous about, well, wait a minute, I'm not a STEM background person. But the beauty of this particular approach was that we would marry up the leadership aspect of what we're very good at, and executing tasks, which is a a skill set that our military team really has a good handle on that. They can get things from point A to point B and make it very well executed. Marrying that group with our STEM teachers, as well as our leadership team here in the community, we had to have buy-in from our mayor. We kind of put our arms around him by making him the honorary chairman of that advisory committee, so he didn't have much choice. You know, what politician doesn't want to be the honorary chairman of something? But he is business minded and understood the connection we were trying to make. We can't just do things, and that's one of the dangers I think sometimes with core subject areas. Core subject areas in a lot of our schools, and not so much at the collegiate level, but for sure in the high school or secondary setting, they focus, my subject is so important, it must be the number one thing in the world. But if you don't make a connection between them, how is that going to lead to that student being successful when he leaves us and eventually, which they have to? And that's where this program makes it work. It takes that core subject material, which is extremely important, and then link that to how you can make that a successful adventure for you and your personal life as you go on to become an adult. And so that connection, as well as the leadership in the community, both from the Chamber of Commerce perspective and all of the political leadership as well, all that's got to blend together if you're going to have a successful program. If you don't reach out, if you stay in a silo, that's dangerous. You will eventually not find funding, and you'll eventually be pushed aside, and you'll create enemies that way. I like to have a big tent. And if everybody understands the mission statement of what you're trying to achieve and what each individual's role is in that, I've already stated, my job has never been to be the expert in none of the STEM subjects. I'm not a STEM grant writer. My job is to give vision and to see an outcome, what I want to achieve. And then you surround yourself with positive-minded people. Don't get anybody negative, you get off the team real fast. Like, if they're positive minded and are willing to work hard and achieve excellence. And I put something to that effect in the chat box just now, that as you move forward from your graduate studies, always seek excellence in everything you do. One of the mistakes I think society has made today is too many of us have become minimalists. We want to achieve the bare minimum to be successful at a task. That's not good for our nation. It's not good for young people to have that mindset. Achieve excellence in all things. And there's nothing wrong with not being the best at something. Well, somebody else might be, but you can still collaborate together and have an outcome that's favorable for all of us to be successful. One of the things that I worry about sometimes when we look at students and so forth is we say, well, everybody should have the same outcome. No, we are not ever going to have the same outcome. Each of us has got God-given strengths. Each of us has different exposures to different opportunities. What we are trying to do and should shoot for is that everybody maximize their individual potential in whatever it is that you want to do. And that to me is a more realistic, and it's a positive approach. By saying we should all have the exact same outcome is dangerous, because then it is that, what is the minimal amount I need to do to achieve this particular standard? And so I think that's important to stress. And one of the things I see happen a lot too is I don't like it when a teacher says, well, you can be anything you want to be. That's not true. You're going to be whatever you can be within your potential. And don't mislead a student. They get turned off if they realize all of a sudden, well, I was told I could be an engineering expert, and yet their math scores are C's and D's. Well, don't lie to the child. You can say that with work, you can achieve that, but show them a pathway and let them be who they are, as opposed to trying and mislead them, because it's an uncomfortable conversation. I know in the 11 years I spent in the classroom, which were my best years of my life, I was always very honest with our students. And I see Levi grinning because we met down at LaFleur High School, and he knows that the young men and women that I had the privilege of working with are all in this. You look behind me, all those photos of these youngsters that I love dearly and still talk about. Very blessed to have worked in that environment. So as you get in that field and you leave the graduate studies, and many of you are working now, I know, but I hope that you take some of the lessons learned from here and leave here saying, I'm excited, I can do this. You just got to go find people that are willing to work with you. And that's, again, I go back, I was so blessed to run the Julie and others, and this thing grew, and here it is now. many years later, and we've been I guess it's been 10 years later. Yeah. So we had the COVID year, which we didn't get to execute this, but lots of possibilities out there for you. So just dream big and go out there and get it. And I see Richard back there. See, Richard's he's my smart guy. He's the brilliant guy in the room, but another key member of our team. And so I've been so blessed to work with this team, and Maggie has brought a new dimension. The one thing, I know we're almost out of time, but that she talked on is that impact report. There are those in your community, they're going to want that data. I mean, they're the data. They love to look at that data. They want pages and pages and pages of data. Others, give me the snapshot of what you are trying to do. And many times those are influencers that you've got to have them on your side. That piece, don't forget that if you're involved in a very detailed research project. You've got to have a clean, solid marketing tool, if you will, that shows what you're doing for those that don't have the time to get into the details, but they're in positions to either give you money or give you opportunity or networking opportunities. So anyway, Julie, I hope I answered the question that you asked me to talk about there. So again, it's been a real honor to meet with all of you today. I hope that this helped a little bit.
And I want to also say congratulations, Councilor Colin Barrow and Miss Maggie. Y'all did a great job with your presentation today. I really enjoyed it. It was very informative. And I think that your picture speaks a lot. Your pictures speak volumes in reference to the relationship with the kids, and building those relationships are very, very important in any profession or anything that you do. Relationship speaks volume, because those relationships that you build with those students going to impact how they receive and how they approach ROTC, the Army, the military, as well as science and math and all of the other careers, or any career that they decide to select in the future. I know here at USM, I was asked the question, you will STEM education? I was like, yes. They said, well, what are you doing over there? And I said, why not? You know, they said, you're not science, you're not math, but in order to push math and to push science in any professional, you have to build relationships, and not just relationships. But I had to think about it, because they caught me off guard when they approached me and said that. But then I came back and I said, hey, if I'm in education and I receive a leadership position, I am going to be the individual that's going to be signing off on contracts, going to be signing off on grants in the school systems, or the individual that are approved different things. So when science and math and STEM educators come up with visions, those things have to be approved, and they have to have someone to find the funding to push those programs through. And that's where your education leadership individuals come through. That's where your principals come through when you want to use their facilities. They have to build a relationship with all facets of individuals to push the program across. And that's what I saw in the pictures. Everybody working together, elaborating, sharing ideas, and it takes a team. It's not just all math teachers. It's not just all science, but it's a combination of everybody working together. So your picture spoke volume. The presentation was just phenomenal this afternoon. It was really, really good and informative. And it's about learning. A lot of time we have information, but we don't share it. And so when you don't know, and when somebody presents something to you, you don't know how valuable it is until you get the opportunity to share. So I want to thank both of y'all for an excellent presentation. I learned a lot. And I'm willing to continue to learn as much as I possibly can. So thank you again for sharing your information as well as your resources. And I'm taking notes and writing it down, because no one knows everything. We're learning every day and building partners as well. So congratulations to both of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And Maggie is our big slide producer, so I'm going to give her props for that.
I was just about to say, your slides are beautiful. I know, like the visuals are really, really helpful. And I've been thinking about, y'all were at the symposium, kind of some of the stuff that I've been working on with this Hattiesburg Zoo and just building communities to do collaborative work. And so it's really interesting hearing kind of about how the things that you're thinking about when expanding outward. And one of the things that I think is interesting, junior ROTC, it sounds like y'all are so organized, right? Like you've got your cadre, you've got your people that wear uniforms and things like this. And that is different in some settings. And so one thing I've been wondering about is in these environments where maybe people aren't as accustomed to the structures and organizational kind of like barriers that help scale things. How do you navigate, I guess, those types of questions is like being fluid, but also allow for kind of expansion and, you know, things like that.
You mean to avoid any rigidity or rigid aspects?
Well, or if you're working with people who are not, like the beauty of it is that they aren't rigid, but that also makes things challenging sometimes.
I think that our particular model allows for that. The organizational part of it is you still have to get from point A to point B to execute the task at hand. And that's, again, I know we think that way, all of us that are. To be a JROTC instructor, you have to retire from the service. So that means you've got 20 plus years. And so we think in terms of mission, accomplishment, and how you get to do that through the various courses of action. However, this model, and I think Julie would say that as we approach this, when we looked at the curriculum, I was hands off completely. I said, there's a team that knows how to execute this. We have a brilliant curriculum writer by the name of Jamie Duke, who happens to be a teacher in our district. And let you run with it. If it's in your lane, you run with it. It's the same way with a research component of this. Julie Swickler and her team, they run with that. I back out of that. And so I think, and the smart leaders do it that way. You give the task with what is expected to be accomplished. You provide the resources, and then you say, you're the smart person in this arena, go do it and figure it out and let me know how I can help you. If you're micromanaging, that's not a healthy environment. And I think we all have heard, and some of us have had to work for what today, I guess the popular term is called a toxic leader, who wants all the credit, unwilling to share any decisions, very afraid to take any risks. I like to take risks. I like to take big risks. And I like to surround myself with positive people that can get things done. And so again, going back to the nature of the individual you surround yourself with is critical. And I have been blessed in this particular regard. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah, you definitely want that creative component to be there, because again, not everybody's not the smartest people in the room, but collaboratively you come up with the best solution. And I think that's true. That certainly this model has enjoyed success because of that, I believe. So what do you think, Julie? Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Surround yourself with the positive people and the doers, and people who say, oh, that's a great idea. Let's see how we can do that. Not, right. No, we've never done it that way before. So yeah, absolutely agree, Frank. 100%.
But you made an excellent point, Maria. Thanks for sharing that.
All right. It's not very often I have to call time. Robin and Maggie, this is an excellent presentation. You even managed to answer some of my questions along the way. I wanted to know some things about that global national implementation, some of those challenges of working with those different cultures and disciplines. And then, you decided to just answer the question. And then I want to know a bit more about, some more about that value of science communication and how to teach people how to understand how to do it and how to distill that information into something that holds meaning to all. And then you just answered it too. And so now I'm wondering if you read my mind before you started the presentation, which isn't nice, but great job. If anyone in the audience has any questions, as you see, we're out of time. Feel free to either email me personally or our two presenters, and they will be more than willing to get back to you with any questions.
Well, we look forward to continuing to work with USM. We hope to come visit your campus like we discussed next fall with some students to come to visit the campus. I'll be potential students there. And I'll take them over to Camp Shelby to let them appreciate dorm life, because Shelby is a lot worse than dorm life, and have some fun with that. So looking forward to that in the fall, like we discussed. And all of you have a wonderful Easter holiday with your families.
Everyone have a very safe Easter. And good evening.